This is Open to Hope Radio, featuring Dr. Gloria Horsley and her daughter, Dr. Heidi Horsley, coming to you on behalf of the Open to Hope Foundation, dedicated to those who are looking for hope after loss. Now, here's Dr. Gloria.
Welcome to the Open to Hope Show. I'm your host, Dr. Gloria Horsley, with my co-host, Dr. Heidi Horsley. Heidi, good morning from California.
Good afternoon, Mom, from New York City. Hello.
Hey. Well, we've got a show I know that is very dear to your heart and dear to mine. It is going to be a show on teens and teens and grief. And we have actually written a book about teens and grief, haven't we, Heidi? Grief Relief.
We have.
Well, Heidi, introduce our guest today. I just know this is going to be a wonderful program because I love what she's doing with teens.
Yes, and like my mom just said, we are going to talk about teens and grief, and we have a fabulous expert on, and her name is Laraine Gordon. Laraine Gordon is a licensed clinical social worker, a therapist, coach, program director, and founder of Time for Teens. Time for Teens provides a bereavement camp plus seminars and workshops for bereaved teens. Lorraine's profession and passion for helping bereaved teens was inspired by the loss of her older sister when Laraine was just 12 years old. Welcome to the show, Laraine.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me on today.
So, Laraine, tell us about the death of your sister when you were 12, and what was her name, and how did she die?
Her name was Laraine Gordon, and she was my older sister, a really wonderful big sister to me. We were 5 years apart. She was killed in a drinking and driving accident when she was just 17. And, the way that I always describe it to people is you're just kind of being a kid and going about your life and kind of doing what kids do, and then it's as if someone comes along and drops a bomb on your house and nothing is the way that it was 5 minutes before you get that news. I can remember very clearly my stepfather really trying to take care of my mom and just her inability to really take care of us at that time. It was just so devastating.
Yeah. Well, as a bereaved parent, I would like to know, what do you think teens need most after loss?
Well, teenagers definitely grieve differently, just kind of how they go about life differently than other age groups. I think that the most important thing is that there's someone from the outside that can talk to them about what's going on and let them know that they're not going crazy. I think teenagers have such a hard time expressing themselves. They just don't have the ability to communicate, everything that's going on for them when something so traumatic happens. And I think that one of the most important things to do is just to give them a language and the ability to express themselves. It's so hard for the family, and there really isn't a whole lot that the family can do for each other because everyone is just trying to keep their heads above water. Because everyone's relationship to the person that died is so individual, and because grief is so personal, it's very difficult for the family to help each other out. So I do firmly believe that outside counseling is definitely the way to go, and really I think just giving them, the teenagers, the venue to say just about anything that's going on in their minds, and that it's not going to make me, as a therapist, gasp, because they're so worried about upsetting their siblings if they have siblings, or upsetting their parents because obviously they're so devastated. I started Time for Teens for that exact reason. I've worked with teenagers pretty much since I was a teenager. And I've done a lot of different bereavement camps and bereavement retreats and programs, and I always saw that the overall theme seemed to be that connection. And working with teenagers, has its own challenges, and then you have teenagers that are grieving, and then the primary emotion is anger. But what I always see every year, I do a bereavement retreat with the teenagers every year. They're 12 to 19 years old, all from completely different backgrounds, often very different losses, but because they've been through such a traumatic loss, each and every one of them, I always see this thread of connection from one kid to the next, and it's an incredible thing to watch and to provide to the teenagers, because I can remember just so well that feeling of just being so separate and apart, not only from my family, but from my friends. I can remember walking down the street after the services and, after we had buried my sister, and I remember watching my friends. It was like the parting of the Red Sea. They coming down the road, and they were kind of going from one side of the road to the other. They just didn't know what to do with me. And when you don't go through something like that yourself, obviously, even adults, right, they don't know what to say. Often people say nothing because they don't know what to say. And so when you provide that kind of connection and they have a whole room full of people who really get them, because let's face it, right, teenagers, that's really important, is that, that other people get them. It's somewhat helpful for me because a lot of times the kids that come to my bereavement retreat are kids that are in counseling with me. So, I have some time to convince them that this is going to be a good thing for them. But it's not an easy thing to do. And it really starts with a parent or a guardian really taking the initiative and the willingness to pick the battle, because it is going to be a battle. It's not going to be their choice. More than likely, they're not going to want to go. They're very resistant to it. But I always say, if you can just get them in front of me and I can explain the program to them, 99% sure that I'll be able to get them to agree to go. Everything is geared towards that age group. And so the activities that we do are, like kayaking and golf clinics and swimming, and I really geared it towards that age group. So that's one thing that's enticing to them. And also, once they are in front of me, they're in a lot of pain, and they may not say that they want to go to a bereavement camp in the middle of the summer. But when I start to tell them about the program, they get it, and they like I said, 99% of the time, they really do want help because they're really struggling.
When do I know my teen is in trouble? When do I know it's just not normal grief and I need to stand up and do something here?
What I always say, well, first of all, that there's nothing normal about losing someone early in your life. So even though it's fairly common, unfortunately, there's nothing normal about it. So my initial reaction to that is there is not a teenager out there, if they've suffered a traumatic loss, that doesn't need to talk to someone professionally. But what I do tell people is typically what I see is if your child was on the angry side before the loss and you're seeing a lot more anger, that's normal. If they are doing a kind of complete opposite, if you had a child who was kind of acting out a little bit in normal teenage behavior, and now they've gotten really, really quiet and withdrawn, that to me is a red flag. Because you're going to see their behaviors get exacerbated. They're going to get magnified because of the loss. That is a given. We do something called experiential therapy at the bereavement retreat every year, and that is it's a more intense therapeutic approach. It's something that I'm trained in, and then the therapists that I have working at the camp are trained in as well. I find it to be extremely effective. For example, I guess one thing it's hard to describe in a nutshell, but we do role playing. For example, they could perhaps write a letter to the person that died, and then they have the opportunity to actually read the letter to that person. They ask someone in the group to play the role of the person. What I do find is that teenagers are so willing and so glad to be able to get rid of all this emotion that they're carrying around. They do tend to dive in and like the intensity of experiential therapy. And so, sitting in a group of teenagers and asking them how they feel, or even asking them to just simply talk about how the person died, people get very attached to their stories. And teenagers will tell you basically what they think you want to hear. And that, it's not going to be harmful, but it's certainly not going to be as helpful as if you kind of take the ego out of the room when you do experiential therapy. And I'm also an actor, and so I do a lot of improvisation exercises with the kids. And www.time, T-I-M-E, the number 4, and then teens, TENS.org.
Well, thanks for listening today, and good luck with your teen. And please visit us on Facebook and on our website and get our book, Teen Grief Relief. And thanks for listening, and God bless.
You've been listening to Open to Hope Radio, hosted by Drs. Gloria and Heidi Horsley. Like today's edition, all of our past programs are available on demand at opentohope.com, along with helpful articles, videos, resources, and links to help get you through the toughest time of your life. You can also follow us on Facebook and Twitter and sign up for our monthly newsletter. Again, that's opentohope.com. Check it out today. Then be sure to stop by next Thursday at 9 a.m. Pacific Time when we'll be posting another edition of Open to Hope Radio. Remember, others have been where you are. They made it through, and you can too, as long as you're open to hope.